Karl-Anthony Towns is headed to the Eastern Conference. How does this impact the Dallas Mavericks and the Minnesota Timberwolves next season in the Western Conference? Coming up on today's Locked On Mavs.
I'm here because I have to be.
Dallas is going to get a seat at the table.
That's it. It's me versus the machine. Don't let his lightness take away from his quickness.
You can rest later. You're young.
And they're in color here.
Wait. One more thing. Oh, let's go. We get a little trade action. Welcome. You're locked on the Dallas Mavericks. This is a One More Thing. I'm one of your co-hosts, Isaac Harris, of this podcast, longtime co-host of this podcast, formerly of the Dallas Mavericks. And here we are back again for a One More Thing over the weekend. I think we'll drop this late Friday night. No joke. I set up my stuff to record a One More Thing on something else. And I just got him finished teaching my son how to play some Rocket League. He loves Rocket League. He doesn't know really what he's doing. But I turn my stuff on. They go to sleep, or they're supposed to be asleep. They might come in here. I don't know. And I pick up my phone before I hit record, and the Karl-Anthony Towns trade goes off on my phone. And Shams drops it. Woj just kicked back probably on some beach somewhere saying, dude, I don't even have to do anything with this. But Karl-Anthony Towns traded to the New York Knicks. If you haven't seen it, Shams tweeted out, and now Bobby Marks, everybody's chiming in. I think at some point there needs to be a third team, so I'm really hoping it's not the Dallas Mavericks at this point. I'm trying to cough, and now I just sound like I got really emotional there. But yeah, I think money-wise, there needs to be a third team in this. But I was about to hit record, so I'm like, I'm just going to go ahead and record because the gist of the trade is done. Karl-Anthony Towns heads to the New York Knicks from the Minnesota Timberwolves, and Julius Randle, Dante DiVincenzo heads to the Minnesota Timberwolves. So in the chat, here's what I want you to do. If you're watching on YouTube, thank you, like, subscribe to the show. This is One More Thing. This isn't a technical episode. If you're new to One More Things, these are 15 to 20 minute kind of quick hitter episodes on a random topic, on a One More Thing topic that we can't squeeze into a show. But does this make the Timberwolves better or worse? Because we're focused on the Mavericks in the Western Conference. Drop that in the comments. Better. The Wolves are better after this trade. The Wolves are worse after this trade. Drop that on YouTube and share the show. Like the show. That helps support the show and all of that. And if you haven't subscribed to our subtext, the link is in the bio of the pod. That's how you can become a Locked On Mavs insider. And we text out different stuff and everything with that. So there's that. There's all the plugs. Wow, what a trade. Am I shocked that Karl-Anthony Towns got traded? No, I'm not. Am I shocked at the timing of it? Yes. I've kind of been in this camp that I thought that they're going to be trading him at some point. This is why I kind of joked. I've been joking for a while. I think I joked about it on the podcast of oh no, we can't talk about the Purge pod, can we? I think it was the Purge pod. I think maybe it was another pod. I was like, dude, the Towns KD trade's going to slap because, Ant and KD got tight and it's like Towns and Booker and all that stuff. And but bam, here we go. Because when you look at Minnesota and you look at their money situation, at some point they're going to have to start making some decisions because they have Ant, who is their superstar, their number one guy. They gave this massive contract to Jaden McDaniels. They traded for Rudy Gobert. They have Karl-Anthony Towns. So at some point you thought that they would have to be making some tough decisions. And that's why I always just kind of thought it was Towns, because I really want to keep a Jaden McDaniels next to Anthony Edwards moving forward in the future. So here we go. I mean, this is what they do. So for a Mavericks podcast, it's, well, how does it impact Dallas? What does this do for Dallas? And my initial reaction is, I think it makes Minnesota worse. I like this much better for New York. I kind of see, if we're talking about how much stock or land or apartment complexes you own on Karl-Anthony Towns Island, you're not going to see my name on any papers. I'm not the biggest Towns guy. Okay. So I'm not going to sit here and say, dude, he is, I mean, they just traded a top 5 player in a league or a top 10 player in the league. I'm not in that camp, but Karl-Anthony Towns, for as much crap as he gets, even from me, he's still a really good player. And I still have to admit that, right? Like, he is still a really, really good player. And he was the clear number 2 with Anthony Edwards. We just did ranking duos on this podcast earlier this week of Towns and Ant. Where do those two guys stack up next to each other? And I'll talk about that, the duo pairing, in just a second, because I thought that was fascinating by Minnesota too. But he's still really good. And he's really good for a season, for a longevity of it, and the stretch 5, and being able to have a guy as good as Towns playing next to Rudy Gobert that can stretch the floor, but also be a guy who can, put up 30 on most nights. An all-star. We could, I guess, we could go all day on the Towns accomplishments. So when you ship him out, I was kind of like, all right, let's see what they're, and Randall and Dante DiVincenzo, it's like, all right. I mean, I get it. I was just on here a few days ago that Randall, I think, a little underrated because he's got some accomplishments. He's made an all-NBA team before, 3rd team, and all-star. So, like, he's got the stats and stuff. But just to swap them out, and on paper, looking at the Randall and Rudy Gobert pairing in the front court, some of the stuff that Randall likes to do in the post, Towns is a way better shooter, not the best shooter of all time as a big man, but a way better shooter than Randall is. And I like DiVincenzo, and I think he's going to play really well on this team, especially coming off the bench and different stuff probably. But I think they just got worse. And I think they got worse for a regular season, unless they do something different. They plan on flipping Randall or something like this. I think they got worse. And from a Mavericks perspective, it's like, I mean, this going into this season, for me, I've been looking at the top of the West as kind of like these 4 teams of, in no particular order here, but in OKC, Dallas, Minnesota, Denver, somewhere between those 4 teams as the home court advantage teams in the West. And now I feel like you got to take them down a spot. I mean, Towns has been there his whole career. So, like, just the chemistry alone, how they play together, media days and training camps are happening. Dallas is coming up on Monday. And it's like, now we're swapping these out right now, and we got to figure this out in Minnesota. And I think that part is just, so I think naturally it is a step down for them. And for Dallas, I think it's one less team that you're fighting at the top of the Western Conference for. And I just want to say, another team that kind of just like punts on something after you get embarrassed by Dallas and Luka in the playoffs. Luka has some bodies in his wake after eliminating some teams in the playoffs. I mean, we got teams going in rebrands. We got teams trading young all-stars. We got teams putting out PR statements, apologizing to fans. Losing to Luka in the playoffs is going to have some consequences. So, I want to take a quick break and then come back and talk about some more Minnesota stuff, the impact this has on the Mavs, and maybe a little Knicks stuff at the end, because I was already a fan of them going into next season, and I think they got even scarier. This podcast is brought to you by Gametime. Guys, there's so many games happening coming up. We have preseason games in Dallas coming up, which is absolutely insane that we have those coming up. We have more Cowboys games coming up there on a street or a stretch right now to where they're not playing games. So it's a little break from that. There's nothing like attending a live event. Gametime has a new feature called Gametime Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite events even easier. Gametime Picks filters out the fluff to show you incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. You can use this app. It features a customize your spot, and the supplemental has inspiration. What app features pleasantly surprised you? I mean, you can look at a super deal. You can look at the seats before you buy them. You can look at the lowest price guarantees and event cancellation protection. It has all the stuff. You can go to Gametime to figure this out. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code, spell out. What am I, president? Locked On NBA. It's LOCKEDON NBA for $20 off. This pod is also brought to you by FanDuel. Our friends at FanDuel, guys. These are some of our loyal sponsors of the show. So the last time I'm pulling up FanDuel here, the odds for Luka Doncic to win MVP, they're hovering there with him being the number one best odds on FanDuel to win MVP next season. That is on FanDuel, guys. And if you're not an NBA fan, which you should be because you listen to this podcast, but maybe you're an NFL fan too, at the start of this regular season, there's a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. When you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Dang it. I got to figure out my...
Shut it down! Oh, no! Let's go home!
There's so many buttons to click on these ads things of breaks and overlays. And one day I'm going to hit it 100%. And y'all better like blow up the comments and be like, dude, that was the smoothest dads do the ads break you've ever done. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Let's talk about the Wolves. If you I think they're worse than before. I don't think they're like playing worse, but I do think they're worse and not in top 4. I think one of the more fascinating parts about this, especially after the conversations that we've had this past week on this podcast regarding duos and the importance of finding the duo that works next to your star cornerstone player, is they just punted on Anthony Edwards' duo partner. Like, we're talking about a youngish. He's younger than Julius Randle. We're talking about the young all-star big that you have paired with your cornerstone franchise superstar in Anthony Edwards, and you just punted on that. That part alone is fascinating to me. That what all played into this? Did an Anthony Edwards conversations play into this? Was it a money thing? Randall's contract is up after this coming season, so there could be clearing up money. Is it a get the expiring contract in Randall to package with something else to get a superstar pairing duo partner with Anthony Edwards? But the fact that you have somebody like a Karl Towns to that level of a player, once again, all the bashing stuff aside, he's still a really, really good younger player. And it's wild to me. And so I'm not saying I disagree, because I'm not a big Towns believer, but it's just wild seeing a team punt on him and say see ya and not get a guy in return that is like the clear-cut number 2 star next to your superstar too. So this is them, for me, this is them kind of hitting reset on trying to find that star next to Ant, and them going back to the drawing table and for the next 12 to 24 months of, all right, now how do we find that guy next to Anthony Edwards to be that guy? Because now who's your second scoring option? Julius Randle, I guess. DiVincenzo. I mean, you think McDaniels is making that huge next step as a scoring guy? Rudy Gobert, hope you're not asking him to score. So, yeah, I think this is a pretty crazy trade to drop. It kind of reminds me of, it's not the same, but it kind of reminds me of when the Harden trade dropped and the timing of that, it just wasn't, we're not fully in the season of trades and stuff to expect something like that. So, yeah. Are y'all with me on like the Wolves are a little worse? Let's look at the East real quick. They have the potential to roll out a starting 5 when everyone's healthy of Mitchell Robinson, Karl-Anthony Towns, OG Anunoby, Mikal Bridges, and Jalen Brunson. And that's one of, if not the best starting 5 in the NBA. If I'm Boston, I'm looking at them straight in the eyes. I mean, if you get a Boston, New York, playoff series. That right there is going to be awesome. I just hope for all all healthy players in that series, like a Porzingis versus Towns, and you get the, McDaniels guarding Tatum. No, not McDaniels. Okay. See, I can't even get out of my head that Towns isn't on the Timberwolves. It's crazy. OG on Tatum, Mikal Bridges on Jaylen Brown, Derek White or Holiday with Brunson. Like, it's just, I don't know who the fourth guy is. I'm probably drawing a blank right now. Maybe Josh Hart is just, starting, guy at that point. No, I've already said who the guys were, but yeah, just fascinating to me, man. I think the Knicks are really, really good. Tibbs signing off on this trade after coaching Towns in the past too. That had to be a conversation. So yeah, right before some media days, you're getting that type of trade. It should be an interesting media day for them and for other teams and stuff too. So there you go. I think the Knicks got better. I was a fan of them making it far in the Eastern Conference and possibly the finals anyway next year. I think this only increases those chances. And for the West and Karl-Anthony Towns leaving the Minnesota Timberwolves, I think the Wolves take a step back, and at least for the time being. And I don't have them in that top four anymore in the West. So there you go, guys. That's one more thing on Locked On Mavs. We'll be back with another Locked On Mavs, possibly over the weekend, but definitely coming up on Monday, because Monday is media day here in Dallas. But we'll drop a podcast on Sunday night talking about that and everything heading into media day interviews. Peace out. Boom. I don't think I can hold up boom the whole time during this outro. So